Okay, so there we go. And I'm gonna just go down like that. Alright, this one here, don't start until right when we start. Okay, you're gonna just press go live. That's all. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina wa Nabiyina wa Maulana Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Allahumma inna nas'aluka hubbak wa hubba man yuhibbuk wa hubba amalin yuqarribuna ila hubbika ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, we ask you for your love. We ask you for the love of those people who love you, and we ask you for the love of those actions that will grant your love, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Ya Allah, we ask you to make this gathering a gathering by which we get closer to you by whatever we learn. A gathering that the knowledge benefits our heart. It makes us better believers in you and better followers of your beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Ya Allah, give the reward of what we are studying, Ya Allah, to all of our family members who have passed away, Ya Rabbil Alameen, and make it a means of their grave becoming a garden from the gardens of paradise, Ya Rabbil Alameen. Alright, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. So today, inshallah ta'ala, we're continuing with line number 114 of Sheikh Ahmad Bamba, rahimahullah ta'ala's massaliku-l jinaan. This is class number 4, and in our previous classes, what we learned is that he said there are two types of knowledges that we have to learn. We have to learn the external and the esoteric and the exoteric. We have to learn the external knowledge and the internal knowledge, and one of them is to rectify our actions, and the other knowledge is so that we rectify our inner states. Because as believers, we know we're taught how to worship Allah, and that's the external form, but also what we're taught by the Prophet ﷺ and all of the prophets of Allah are how our inner state should actually be, what the inner form of our faith should be. And so he was teaching us about that over the last 3 classes. And our last class that we had, he specifically talked about reasons not to study for, reasons not to learn religious knowledge for, meaning sometimes a person can be striving down the right path, but be doing it for the wrong intention. And as believers, we know that the intention is actually the most important part of the action. Not only that should the action be correct, but the intention behind why the action is being done must be solely for the sake of God and for nothing else. And so he was talking about seeking knowledge purely for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and no reason other than that. And so today, he continues to speak about beneficial knowledge. He speaks about beneficial knowledge, what you should get from knowledge, what good knowledge should create inside of your heart. That's the first thing he's going to talk about. And then he's going to talk about the best actions that we can do. Today's class, if you haven't been in any other classes, you're lucky because you're coming to a really beneficial one in which he's going to mention good actions that we should do, the knowledge and benefits that we should get, and the types of knowledge that we should seek. So 3 things are the first 3 things we're going to talk about. And as normal, for those who've never been, I'm going to recite the poem line by line, and then I'll explain it bit by bit as we go through the poem, inshallah. Alright, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. فنافي العلوم أيضا ما أفاد صاحبه خشية خالق العباد والذل والزهد وكثرة الأدب ولإفتقار وتواضع جذب. He says, and the most beneficial knowledge is the knowledge that gives the one who holds it fear of the creator of everything. The most beneficial knowledge is the knowledge that gives the one who holds it khashya, fear of the creator of everything. The concept of fearing Allah for a believer is really unique. Our fear of God is not the type of fear you have of a fear of someone holding a gun to your head, or the fear of a lion that's coming after you. That's not the fear of God that we're taught in the Quran. But rather we're taught a type of fear that is accompanied by love. Because what can be more scary than to lose the love of your beloved? What can be more scary than to lose the love of your beloved? And so the type of fear, the way my teacher once explained it to me, was it's like the fear you have of your mom. It's like the fear you have of your mom. Like when you're older, when you're a mature man, you don't fear mom because she's going to give you a spanking or a whooping, as we used to call it. But you fear mom because I don't want to let mom down. And I fear mom being upset with me. That fear of mom being upset with me is the almost, وَلِلَّهِ الْمَثَلُ الْأَعْلَى, but almost the type of fear we have of Allah. That I don't want Allah to see me in a place I shouldn't be. I don't want Allah to see me in an action I shouldn't be involved in. And I don't want to see Allah to see me with a state of heart that I shouldn't have. So what does he say? He says that how do you notice if knowledge was good knowledge for you? When you leave a gathering of knowledge like this, how do you know if that knowledge was actually beneficial knowledge? You know by the fruits that it creates within your heart. The fruit that is created by that knowledge, you know the tree by the fruit. You know the tree by the fruit. Everybody got a bunch of fruit. I ain't even getting it. Just killing the fruit. Tell you, it's all good. It's all good. Abdurrahman, it's all good, yo. It's all good, bro. This is the real fruit. The spiritual fruit. Once the Prophet ﷺ, he said, when you pass by a garden of paradise, pick from the fruit. Now he was speaking to Arabs in the desert of Arabia. So they immediately replied, we don't see no gardens over here. He said, when you pass by the gardens of paradise, pick from the fruit. And immediately they said, we don't see any gardens. He said, the gatherings of beneficial knowledge are the gardens of paradise. The gatherings of beneficial knowledge, where you learn something that will benefit your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, those are the gatherings where are the gardens of Jannah. So, how do we know if the tree is a good tree? How do we know? By the fruit. So he says, one of the most important fruit that you should see on the tree of knowledge, is that it creates within you khashya, a fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And again, I want all of us to understand this concept of fear, because I think many people, depending on your cultural background, you have this misunderstanding for fear of God that's been ingrained in you since you were a little child. And that fear of God is not what the Prophet taught. That's not the type of fear. It's way deeper than that. So he says, the first lines, he says, فَنَافِيُ الْعُلُومِ أَيْضًا مَا أَفَادْ صَاحِبَهُ خَشْيَةَ الْخَالِقِ الْعِبَادِ وَالذُّلَّ وَالزُّهْدَ وَكَثْرَةَ الْأَدَبِ وَلِإِفْتِقَارٍ وَتَوَاضُعٍ جَذَبٍ. And he says, knowledge that inspires within you humility. Knowledge which inspires within you humbleness. وَالزُّهْدَ. Zuhd in Arabic is a type of asceticism, which in today's woke millennial terms means to be a minimalist. And The idea behind minimalism in Islam is that you have to come to the point where you realize the more things that I get won't bring that contentment to my heart. It doesn't matter how many more things I'm getting, the contentment will not come. Allah reward you guys. Allah reward you, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. My man. Just messing with you. You're my man, bro. I'm the man, bro. Listen. He says that not beneficial knowledge should create two more things in you. What's the first one? Khashya. Number two, dhul. Dhul is a type of humbleness. That you learn it, you feel more humble, not more arrogant. Some things you study, after you know them, you feel like, yeah, I'm the man, yo. I'm the man. I know so much. I'm so intelligent. I'm so learned. And he says true beneficial knowledge is knowledge that, number one, brings within you what? Humility. First thing. Number two, asceticism. Now, this is an extreme asceticism. The Prophet didn't promote an extreme asceticism. The Prophet ﷺ taught it this way. مَا قَلَّ وَكَفَى خَيْرٌ مِمَّا كَثَرَ وَأَلْهَى. This is beautiful. Beautiful, Iqbal. Check this. The Prophet ﷺ said, مَا قَلَّ وَكَفَى. That which is little but enough is better than that which is abundant but confuses you. Think about that for a moment. We always equate more to better. We always equate more to better. And so what we're being taught, even as adults now, as spiritual maturity, a level is to realize, no, sometimes, and it's funny now because the woke millennials are now realizing that, and this whole, minimalist movement is like, this dude got like some million views about his style of being a minimalist. But you need less, you don't need more. And so he says true knowledge should create within you a feeling that I don't need to go out and get more, but rather I should build contentment with what I have. Here's the key I want you to understand. If you don't have contentment and appreciation with what you have, I'm trying to drink,
you gotta make more room up there.
So true knowledge, what he's trying to say is this. The Prophet ﷺ said what? مَا قَلَّ وَكَفَى. We're not talking about having less than you need, but it's about knowing what is enough. And if you look at the bell curve of happiness, which different studies have shown, once you hit that enough, your peak at happiness right there. And now the more you consume, the less happiness that you're actually experiencing within your life. And so here we have Sheikh Ahmad Bamba from 100 years ago explaining this concept to live with minimal, and you'll find that contentment, and subhanAllah, it's just a gem within our tradition. So he says, وَالزُّهْدَ وَكَثْرَةَ الْأَدَى. And he says true knowledge should also increase your manners, your etiquette, your manners with people, your mannerisms with people should become more refined. You become more aware of the subtle things that will maybe offend someone, and you're careful about those things. So your manners become more refined. And here perhaps is one of my favorite. He says, "Wali iftiqarin," and it should create within you awareness of your own weakness. Awareness of your own weakness, and admitting your weakness is such an empowering feeling, because once you realize that you can't, then you realize that God can, Allah can. But so long that you keep saying, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, then Allah says, okay, you figure it out on your own then. But the moment you learn to let go and let God, as they say, for real, it's the same concept, but we're all struggling the same battles, right? The moment you're able to let go and realize that I don't have control. Now, here's why that's hard for me and you. I'm still millennial too, so here's why it's hard for me and you. Because we've always been taught from the age of 4 and 3, learn how to do stuff by yourself. Don't ask for help. And here I am talking to you at the age of 24, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, whatever. That now, guess what? Don't focus on your independence, focus on your dependence. Because the more you realize you're dependent, the more you're relying on Allah. And the man tawakkal ala Allah fahuwa hasbu. The one who tawakkals on Allah, the one who trusts on Allah, he'll be enough for you. But if you can't trust in him, he's like, you do it yourself then. You do it yourself. And so it's so hard for us to go, you know what? I tried my best, and I'm going to leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he says, iftiqar, awareness of weakness. Awareness of weakness is a gym. Once you get to a hurdle you can't cross and it's too hard, that's the moment you say subhanallah, you open your hands in prayer, you get on your prayer rod, you bust out 2 rak'ah, and you go, I'm the weakest person in the world, Ya Allah, help me out. And you know whose sunnah that is? Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's leaving Ta'if, having given dawah. Ta'if was the city next to Mecca. Everyone in Mecca is like, yo, we don't want to hear your message. So he's like, I'm going to go to Ta'if. I'm going to give them dawah. Maybe they'll receive me. He went to Ta'if. You guys know the story. The same thing happened. They kicked him out. Kicked him out in the worst way. On the way out, what is he complaining to God about? His own weakness. His own weakness. And the moment you realize weakness is when God's strength, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's strength comes in. And so he's saying true knowledge, a true beneficial knowledge that you learn should increase within you, not a sense that you can do everything yourself, but rather a sense that you need Allah at every moment. And guess what? Guess what? You can do everything, but you can only do everything through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that's the most empowering feeling. That you can't stop me. You can't stop me on my goals. Why not? Because you can't be beat? No, because Allah's with me. You can't beat me. That's the most empowering feeling. So he says true knowledge should create what? وَلِإِفْتِقَارٍ وَتَوَاضُعٍ جَذَبٍ. True knowledge should inspire within you humility, a sense of minimalism, more increased refined manners with people, and an awareness of your weakness, وَتَوَاضُعٍ, and another type of humility. It should inspire that within yourselves. That's what true knowledge should bring inside of your heart. If you sit in a halaqah, if you sit in a gathering, if you sit in a class and you walk out of that class feeling more arrogant than before, and you walk out of that classroom feeling more less needy of God, he says that knowledge wasn't truly beneficial for your soul. It wasn't truly beneficial for your soul. And Allah knows best. Question?
Yeah, Sheikh, how would you differentiate between good and tawakkul?
Tough one. I was skipping that because not everyone's a qalam student. وَطَهَّرَ الْقَلْبَ.
Sorry, go ahead. I'll ask you this.
Okay. He says, فَنَافِيُ الْعُلُومِ أَيْضًا مَا أَفَادْ صَاحِبَهُ خَشْيَةَ الْخَالِقِ الْعِبَادِ وَالظُّلَّ وَالزُّهْدَ وَكَثْرَةَ الْأَدَبِ وَلِإِفْتِقَارٍ وَتَوَاضُعٍ جَذَبٍ وَطَهَّرَ الْقَلْبَ وَنَفْسَهُ قَمَعٍ وَمِنْ مَعَاصِي خَالِقِ الْوَرَى مَنَعٍ. And he says that beneficial knowledge will create within you purification of your soul, your heart. طَهَّرَ الْقَلْبَ. It should purify your heart. And obviously as we're studying this book, we're talking about purifying our heart from lower diseases and sicknesses of the heart. So for those who don't know, the Quran right from the beginning uses this term, لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ مَرَضٌ. They have hearts that are sick. And then the Quran speaks about hearts that are dead. And then the Quran speaks about hearts that are alive. And so when a heart becomes sick, you have to cure it. You have to work on it. You have to work to make it better. But sometimes you become so used to a sickness that you think the state of sickness is a normal state. You become so used to jealousy of people that you think jealousy that you have is normal. You become so used to the rage you have for people that you think rage is normal. You become so arrogant, which is a sickness of the heart, that you think arrogance is normal. And so sometimes we've been living so long with certain sicknesses and benign sicknesses within our heart that they've almost become what we think to be healthy. And then when healthy, sick people who are used to sickness see healthy people, they go, you look real weird. Why are you guys so strange? And we're like, because we're healthy. Why don't you guys backbite people? That's normal. Why? You're weird. No, I'm normal. You're sick. Why don't you have jealousy for people? I never hear you talking bad about anyone. What's wrong with you? Like, you're not normal. Like, no, I'm normal. This is a healthy heart. And what I notice is a lot of Muslim children, they were raised in these very, very pure environments, many of them. And then when they went out into the world, many of them, they came with a lot of naivety with them. And the moment they confronted that they would get played a lot. If they had that naive nature, they dropped that naive nature and became smart like everybody else. Because that's what's going to make me survive. Do you know what I mean by that or no? So I had a friend in high school. I'm not going to say what country he was from. But this guy would talk to a tree. I mean, like, he was so nice. We'd be on the bus and public transportation. I know Arlington, y'all know nothing about public transportation. But he would be on the public transportation. Up north, you don't talk to people. Right? I don't know about SoCal, but we don't talk to people. And we'd sit on the bus, it'd be me and him, and he'd look next to side to be an elderly lady or elderly. Hi, sir, how are you? I'd be like, dude, what you doing, man? Like, what's wrong with you? Texas, right? You do that here?
Yeah.
Okay, well, up north we don't do that. And so what my point was, when in the beginning, like, he was so pure. He was so pure. And as that purity was seen by people who are not pure, they start to like jab at that pureness. And by the time we got to senior year, he was a different person. He was a different person. And so hold on to that purity. Hold on to that. That's loved by God. That's loved by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So he says, وَطَاهِرِ الْقَلْبِ, beautiful knowledge should start to teach you how to refine your inner character and your soul. Your heart should become better from beneficial knowledge. وَالنَّفْسَهُ قَمَعْ, and it should help you to fight against your lower self. In Arabic and in the Quran, we have a concept called nafs. This is a very important concept to wrap your mind around because Allah, God has placed within us this part of us that always desires something. It desires food. It desires the opposite gender. It desires rahat, relaxation. It desires these things. And the equation is the nafs is like the 2-year-old child within you. The nafs is like the 2-year-old child that when it's hungry, it screams. When it doesn't get what it wants, it screams. When it wants something, it just throws a tantrum. And the nafs, if not controlled, will grow stronger and stronger and stronger until you see people with $4 million contracts arguing and crying over the smallest thing because they can't get what they want. See, what's supposed to happen is that as you grow, you spiritually grow as well. And the nafs becomes weaker. The nafs is that 2-year-old inside. And in the Quran, we're taught that you're supposed to fight this nafs constantly. Fight this nafs. Once in a hadith, it's narrated the Prophet ﷺ was coming back from a battle. Right? The Prophet ﷺ was coming back from a battle. And they had just won the battle. And the Prophet ﷺ was like, hey, chill out, guys. We're leaving Jihadul Asghar, going to Jihadul Akbar. We're leaving the small jihad, which was a battle, a physical conflict. We're leaving that, but guess where we're going? Home. And guess what? We got a bigger battle. You know what the bigger battle is? To stay on the way of God. To stay on the orders of Allah. That's the bigger battle. Because your nafs, watch, tomorrow Fajr, your nafs is going to be like, yo, go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. And you feel big, you feel strong, but you can't conquer your own self. You can't conquer your own self. And so, true knowledge should train you. True knowledge from the Prophet ﷺ would train you how to conquer that nafs. Because when you conquer that nafs, wallahi, the soul flies, it elevates. Let me give you an example. In the month of Ramadan, we're all fasting. The nafs hates Ramadan. Because Ramadan, the month of fasting, is all about nafs, I don't care what you want. I'm not giving it to you. Do you understand what I mean by that? So the nafs really truly dislikes Ramadan because you're doing nothing but going against the nafs. Now, what spiritual realities do you normally notice, even if it's just a little, in the month of Ramadan? You notice this enlightenment in your heart. You feel better. You feel closer, even if it's just a little bit. That's because the nafs is being pushed down. And so long that you learn to oppose the nafs, so long that you learn to go against the nafs, then you start to enlighten. Now what happens after a while, as one of the sisters brought up in our last class, we learn in the Quran there are 3 types of nafs. Let's go over these for people who don't know. In the Quran, we're told there are 3 types of nafs. And nafs are that thing inside you. Some say it's the id inside of you. The lower nafs is nafsul amara bisu. This is the inner soul that is constantly pushing you to evil. You know, you got some of those friends that always want to do wrong. Those dudes. That's the nafsul amara bisu. It never tells you good stuff to do. It's only telling you bad stuff to do. That's nafsul amara bisu. Number 2 is called nafsul lawama. It's the nafs that falls into wrong but feels really bad about the wrong after it did it. It fell into the wrong but it feels horrible after. Like, dang, what happened? Now here's the deal. Many of us are in nafsul lawama, but if you keep sleeping, then your nafs stops telling you anything was wrong. You stop feeling it. Do you understand what I mean by that? Look, when you get a callus, the skin dies and you don't get feeling there anymore. What happens in nafsul lawama, the skin is still alive. It's not calloused yet. So when it touches something or pricked by something, it hurts. But guess what? If you keep doing the sin, like keep rubbing that spot over and over, guess what? It becomes nafsul amara bisu. It doesn't feel anything. It can do the evilest of things and feel nothing at all inside. And I've seen people like that. I feel like I was one of them at one point in my life. Come closer, please. We got brothers in the hallway. Please come closer, inshallah. Yo, what's the third nafs? The third type of nafs is called nafsul mutma'inna. And this is an elevated state of spirituality. This is the state where the nafs only tells you good stuff to do. The inner self is like, we should give charity, we should pray, we should wake up. And Shaitan is side-eyeing this dude like really? You're supposed to be my boy. See, Shaitan the devil, Shaitan normally works with the nafs. So he'll just drop a link, right? He'll just drop a seed. And he's like, nafs gonna take over from here. Do you understand that relationship? Shaitan doesn't have to push you, he just has to put it right there. Because nafs will push you after that. Everyone understand? But what happens when the person reaches nafsul mutma'inna, now Shaitan has no way in. Because this person has opposed the nafs for so long that now the nafs simply just obeys and is only giving the man right things to do. Right things to do. For him too? Okay, so he says, back to the poem now. We got those 3 types of nafs. It's very important to understand that. So look what he says next. He says, well, the true beneficial knowledge will do what? It will work on this heart here. And then what? It will teach you how to uproot that nafs, to go against it. وَمِن مَعَاسِي الْخَالِقِ الْوَرَى مَنَعْ. And he says, and true knowledge will prevent you from disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, this is a big one. Ma'asi. Ma'asi means sin or disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And when you gain knowledge of the deen, if that knowledge doesn't help you obey Allah, then there was something missing in that knowledge. And you really need to search what was the missing key. And so as we're studying this book, he will teach us practical methods for how to avoid sins. Like one of the things that we talked about in our previous class, and it's going to come up again, is one of the primary ways to prevent sins. First of all, you have to create a dislike for the sin in the first place. You have to create a dislike for the sin in the first place. I can't talk to you about stopping a sin if you're like, yo, still feeling it though, yo. Still feeling it, to be honest with you, man. So until you realize smoking is going to kill you and land you in the hospital, you ain't going to stop. You're going to know it's bad, don't get me wrong. Every night you'll go to sleep and be like, yo, tomorrow I'm quitting. But you won't until you truly realize how harmful it is for you. And similarly with disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, until you've come to realization of the harms of that sin, you're not going to be able to truly give up that sin. And so then, only then, after you've realized the harms of it, will you be able to give up the sin. So all of these khutbahs and lectures about stopping sins and all of that, nah. What we need to talk about are why are sins so detrimental to your well-being. Why are sins so detrimental to your well-being? Once you've come to that conclusion, Now it's a lot easier to push the self in that direction, and we can make a psychological change that I want to get rid of this sin from my life. Fahimtum. Fahimtum. And so if anyone is struggling with a sin that they still don't see as bad, then that's the question. That's the research. That's the investigation that needs to be done. Why is this sin so bad for me? What's it going to do for me? Cool? What's it going to do against me? All right. Let's go forward, inshallah. So how many things come from beneficial knowledge? How many you got right now? 8. MashaAllah. So let's read it again. فَنَافِئُ الْعُلُومِ أَيْضًا مَا أَفَادَ صَاحِبَهُ خَشْيَةَ الْخَالِقِ الْعِبَادِ وَالظُّلَّ وَالزُّهْدَ وَكَثْرَةَ الْأَدَبِ وَلِإِفْتِقَارٍ وَتَوَاضُعٍ جَذَبَ وَطَهَّرَ الْقَلْبَ وَنَفْسَهُ قَمَعَ وَمِنْ مَعَاصِ خَالِقِ الْوَرَى مَنَعَ أما الذي لم يكن هكذا فلم يمنع غدا من نار ربنا نعم. He says any knowledge that is not like this or does not create these effects in your heart, this knowledge will not protect you from the fire tomorrow. And there's only one fire we're talking about. So true knowledge should be knowledge that protects you from the fire, and true knowledge is true knowledge that will give you the following benefits, the 8 benefits that we just discussed together. May Allah make our gatherings like this knowledge that give us that type of knowledge. All right? We don't need more lectures, more this, more that. Oh, I learned another gym. I learned this. I learned. No, you need knowledge that is going to rectify your inner state, and that's what we're trying to do here, inshallah ta'ala. His poetry is beautiful, guys. Beautiful. Let's go forward. فَأَفْضَلُ الْعُلُومِ بِالْإِطْلَاقِ توحيد ربنا على الاتفاق وبعده تفسير للقرآن ثم الحديث قاله ديماني وخيرها من بعد ذا وذين علم التفقه بغير مين. Okay, so now what does he say? He switches topics now. Now he's talking about knowledge still, but what he's talking about is how to prioritize the most important knowledge of religion. What is the most important and down the list? What is the order of priority of seeking knowledge? Now, this is very beneficial for me and you because a lot of times we're like, all right, I want to listen to a podcast. I want to do this. I want to do that. But where do I start? Here, the author is giving us practical thing where to start. What's the most afdal, most virtuous or highest knowledge that you should be seeking? Okay. So, he says, فأفضل العلوم بالإطلاق توحيد ربنا على الاتفاق. He says, listen closely, the highest knowledge of religious knowledge that you can obtain, the highest. Remember, what we just spoke about was benefit of knowledge, what it should create inside of you. That's different. He's talking now about like a hierarchy of knowledges, a hierarchy of knowledges. He says the highest knowledge that you can seek out, بالإطلاق, generally speaking, is Tawheed Rabbina al-Ittifaq. He says knowledge of the oneness of God, knowledge of Aqidah, what we call. So let's talk about this. Let's break this down. This is an important topic. So one of the, perhaps the primary pivotal or the axis around which the entire religion of Islam rotates is this concept of Tawheed of Allah. What does Tawheed of Allah mean? It means understanding that God is one. God is singular. There's not many gods, there's one God. And what we mean by that on a deeper level is that there is no cause to things except Him. There is no cause to things except Him. There is no provider except Him. There is no grantor of mercy except Him. He is the essence. He alone is the essence. And that is the message that we believe all of the prophets came to give, which was God is one, worship one God. Don't worship other things instead of God. Only understand that God is, because how, if I give you a gift, if I give you a brand new car, Rahman, nah yo, Fatima. I just remembered.
I actually got a new car.
You got one today? Mabruk, may Allah put barakah in it. Everyone say Ameen. May Allah put blessing in it. Ameen, alhamdulillah. So I can't give her a car. Okay. If someone gifted you a car, from their money, paid off, no payments, nothing, Insurance paid for 5 years. MashaAllah. Right? Okay, if someone was to do that, listen closely. If someone was to do that for you, and you were to then turn around and show gratitude in front of that person, you stood up in front of this gathering and you said, hey everyone, I want y'all to know I was blessed with a new car. I'm the one that gave it to you. I was blessed with a new car, and I'd like to show all of my gratitude to Yazan. How would I feel? How would I feel that all of these gifts I gave you of health, of wealth, of children, of a beautiful sunset, of things as beautiful as Niagara Falls. Have y'all seen Niagara Falls? SubhanAllah, that's where I'm from. It's amazing. SubhanAllah. The one who gave you all of these beautiful things, and then you go back and you thank someone else, and you call that thing a God? I'm like, what about me? So for a Muslim, we understand that the biggest, and in the Old Testament, you find that the biggest sin was blasphemy, which was to say unto God, which wasn't God. And so what he's saying here is that the primary knowledge you need to get is knowledge of the oneness of God, and that is the pivotal point of Islam. Now, I want to talk about something else at this point. When he says Tawheed, he actually means learning Aqidah. And what is Aqidah in Islam? Aqidah means what we believe. Now, the interesting thing about Aqidah is Aqidah has become, so again, let me slow down a bit. Learning Aqidah. What does Aqidah mean? I'm throwing all these Arabic terms out there. What is this Aqidah stuff? Simply put, the collective sum of what we as Muslims believe is codified into a science called Aqidah. Is codified into a science called Aqidah. And if you want to just know what do Muslims believe, not what Muslims do. We don't look at what Muslims do. That's not a litmus test for Islam. But what do Muslims believe? If you just want to know that, you'd pick up an Aqidah book and you'd read that they believe in the oneness of God. They believe that God is pre-eternal. They believe in prophets of God, and they believe in angels of God, and they believe in predestination, and they believe in heaven and hell, and they believe in all of these things. Right? Now, the funny thing is that Aqidah in American Islamic, in the landscape of American Islam, there's two sciences that have been given this kind of bad reputation. And it's only an effect of the late 90s and what Islam was like before y'all was even on the scene. Before y'all was even on the scene, what was happening in America with Islam caused a ripple effect till today. When you talk about Aqidah, brothers think you're talking about where is Allah? Where is this polemical? It's been now Aqidah, when we talk about Aqidah, we think, oh, this person's a polemicist. He's going to get in polemical, hair-splitting issues of why this sect is different from this sect. No. Aqidah should be learned for one reason, brothers and sisters. Why do you learn Aqidah? Let me tell you. You learn Aqidah not because your enemy defines you, but rather you need to know your own identity and who you are. Let me say that again. I'm not learning Aqidah to learn what I'm not. I'm learning Aqidah to know who I am. I'm learning Aqidah to know who I am. And if you haven't studied Aqidah, then quite frankly, you don't know who you are as a Muslim, though you may be a Muslim. And there's another science which has also been given a bad rep, which is the science of tasawwuf. Which is the first time I'm dropping the word. Bam! Bam, he dropped it.
We were waiting.
Huh?
We were waiting for it.
I'm not going to hold it for too long. The science of tasawwuf was also given that bad rep because of the negative things that were mixed into tasawwuf in the early 90s in American Islam and across the world. And as we were discussing here at Qalam today, the problem is you don't throw out, and I learned at my age by this saying, you don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. So I said that, and one of the sisters was kind of like, what's that mean? And I was like, my age is showing clearly. So it simply means that, yeah, there were bad things mixed into tasawwuf. Yes, there were bad things mixed into, and tasawwuf is just what they call in academics Sufism, right? What they call Sufism. Uh-oh, the word was dropped. Yes. Troublemaker here. No, all jokes aside, listen to me closely. The concept of spiritual rectification started with the Prophet ﷺ. And as time went on, these sciences were codified. And people studied them for centuries. Sheikh Ahmad bamba is just one example. There are Ghazalis, there's people. Ibn Taymiyyah is a specialist of the science of tasawwuf. SubhanAllah. Ibn Qayyim al-Jawzi. Why? Because tasawwuf was an essential part of your religious well-being. You could be praying all day, doing the movements, but your heart is somewhere else. And the concept of worship Allah as if you see Him is an inner science of learning how to control the mind and the heart and connect those things to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is what the science of tasawwuf is all about. And so, Tawheed is the first science that you must master because you must know who you are. You must know who you are. Alarm. Wifey's alarm. وأفضل العلوم بالإطلاق توحيد ربنا على الاتفاق. So the best, if we do a hierarchy of knowledge, the best knowledge is to know who God is. To know who Allah is. Know your Lord. Know your Lord. Know your Lord. Get to know who He is. That's the best knowledge. Number 2, he goes, وَبَعْدَهُ تَفْسِيرُ لِلْقُرْآنِ ثُمَّ الْحَدِيثُ قَالَهُ دَيْمَانِ. He says, and after that, you should seek knowledge of tafsir of the Quran. What does that mean? You should be able, brothers and sisters, to understand the simple surahs that you read every day in prayer. You should be able to understand the simple Fatiha. What is God saying to me in Fatiha? What is God saying to me in Kul Huwallahu Ahad? The simple surahs. You don't have to become a mufassir, no. But you need to understand the simple messages that Allah is speaking to you, and at least the surahs that you recite. So he says the second knowledge that you want to learn are the meanings and the deeper aspects of what the Quran is saying to you. ثُمَّ الْحَدِيثُ. Then you want to learn hadith. You want to learn some of the beautiful statements of the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, for those who don't know him, is a prophet who was given something called jawami'ul kalim, which is he could speak some of the most pithy statements, some of the most profound, deep statements in the smallest amount of words. In the smallest amount of words, he could say the deepest of statements. And by studying hadith, you get a type of nur in your heart, just the way by studying Quran, there's a type of nur in your heart. And so an example, one of my favorite hadith, if I had to put a playlist of hadith, my number 1 hadith probably would be oh, that's a good one. Maybe number 9. Number 1 hadith for me is the Prophet ﷺ said, and when I repeat it, many of you will know it. The Prophet said, "Ajaban li amr al-mu'min, inna amrahu kulluhu khair. In asabahu sarra, shakara, kana khairan. When asabahu darra, sabara, fa kana khairan." The Prophet ﷺ said, the believer's affair is weird. The believer in God, his affair is weird. Inna amrahu kulluhu khair. All of his situations are good. Now, that does not mean, this is my words, that does not mean everything goes gravy all the time. Everything ain't gravy all the time, no. But how we interpret everything is what matters. And so the Prophet ﷺ says, I'm saying now about this hadith, you can't control situations, but you can control how you perceive the situation. So let me come back to the hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, the believer is really strange. All of their affairs and situations are good. If hardships afflict them, then they're patient, and that patience is good. Well, how is patience good for me? How is because you grow stronger through patience. What is lifting weights? Nothing but patience and growing stronger through patience. Bearing hardships, heavy weights, over time builds your strength. It makes you walk around very proudly. very proudly, I've lifted so much strong weight, now look at me. And everyone goes, yes, mashallah, we appreciate what you've done. We appreciate the struggles you went through for that ripped body, mashallah. I'm only looking at like 5 people. Everybody in between is like, okay, no, the point is that hardships make you stronger. So the Prophet said, sabara, hardship, sabr, good. Now the other thing is not everything is hardship. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, in asabatu sarra, good times come, beautiful times come. And to me, psychologically, this is preparing every believer for the ups and downs of life. That is life right there. It's up and down. It's up and down. And then he says, if you experience good, then what do? You're grateful to Allah. And of course, that's good for you. I mean, there are studies that show that gratitude literally affects the brain in certain ways. At least that's what my Facebook feed told me. I know we all are seeing the same algorithms because we're all Muslims, right? So we all see the same posts. I go home and I tell my wife, yo, hey, did you see? She's like, yo, I saw the same post. Chill out. And so I learned, like, stop giving lectures and mentioning stuff you saw on Facebook because everyone here saw it too. Okay, let's keep going. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. So hadith, he said study oneness of God, study the Quran, and then study hadith. وَخَيْرُهَا مِنْ بَعْدِ ذَا وَذَيْنِ الْمُتَفَقُهِ بِغَيْرِ مَيْنِ. He says after you've studied both of those things, you need to study the next thing, which is the science of fiqh. The science of fiqh. What is fiqh in Islam? Fiqh is the law of God, the law of Muhammad, the way we pray and the way we fast and the way we do hajj and the way we marry and the way we divorce and the way we do anything in life. We have something called a sharia, and the sharia simply means a pathway. Sharia, all these buzzwords coming. Sharia is nothing new. It's a way to God. It's a way that Allah has laid out for your obedience to Him, because we believe that prophets came to teach us a way. Not that every person finds their own way to God, but that rather that Allah sent a man, and that man has a message for me. And if I follow that message, I'll find my way to God. And guess what? He's not the first one. There's been many more before him with the same exact thing. So this makes sense to me. Jesus came with the same thing. Abraham came with the same thing. Isaac came with the same thing. Suleiman and David, and they all came with the same thing. So it makes sense to me. And Muhammad came and he said the exact same thing that all of them said. So I said, I will follow your way, O Muhammad. And if I lived at another time, I'd say, Moses, I'm with you too. If I lived at another time, I'd say, Jesus, I'm rolling with you. But I live at the time of Muhammad, so that's my man. Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Very simple concept for us. So you study fiqh, as I was saying, and fiqh is the do's and the don'ts, and this is where millennials say I'm out. I like the spiritual stuff because it feels good, and it made me go, ah. But then you started telling me do's and don'ts, and I'm like, no, I'm okay. Halal or haram police. So listen, all jokes aside, this is where many of us fall short. We spiritually want to connect to God, and then the moment we find out that there's this word called haram or halal, we go, that's where I don't like it. But my true question to you with love and sincerity is, who do you think you are?
How sincere was that?
To myself. I want God, but not what He tells me wrong and right. I want Muhammad, but I don't want his way. I don't want to be controlled by what he's telling me. Do I really want Muhammad then? Sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Do I really love what he taught me? Yes, I may not be ready for it yet, but that's different, because I may not be ready, so you know what I'm going to say? I believe, but I'm weak. I believe, but I'm weak. I want you to follow your way, O Muhammad, but I'm weak. I won't deny the way, though. I'll never deny the way. So I'm not saying that we get up from this gathering and we go, you know what? I'm ready for every halal and haram. Drop it on me. No. Slowly. Slowly. As your faith builds, you put more weights on the bar. You put more weights on the bar. And then you go forward. Does everyone understand? So it's very important to understand fiqh are the do's and don'ts. And fiqh is our sharia. Our sharia is just what's halal and what's haram. And to be honest, before I accepted Islam, and he goes forward. Now we're doing what? The hierarchy of knowledge, correct? How many have we done so far? 4, okay. He says, وَبَعْدَ ذِي الْمَذْكُورَةِ الْآلَاتِ أَعْنِي عَلَى الْحَسْبِ يَا هُدَاتِ. He says, now, after you've gained those 4 things, you can now, if you have the time, begin to learn other knowledges that are supplementary to increase you in the other fields. And they're called auxiliary knowledges almost. What do I mean by that? He'll give some examples. Here's some examples. كَالنَّحْوِ وَالْأُولِ وَالْبَيَانِ وَلُغَةُ الْعَرَبِ وَالْمَعَانِ. Like, he says, like learning grammar. Obviously, if you want to understand the Quran, you need to know grammar. And he said, urudi, poetry, Arabic poetry, the scales and the style of poetry. Wal-bayan, Arabic rhetoric. If you want to understand the Quran on a deep level, you need balagha. What he's trying to say now is, now I'm talking about things that not everyone needs. But if you want to become a specialist and go deeper, then you need these things. The thing I think that's beautiful for us is there are many people who start off their journey and they're like, I want to become a better Muslim. And they do the Arabic class. They go to the masjid for the Arabic class. He said Arabic last. He said Arabic. You know what we do to new Muslims? A person becomes Muslims and you're sitting there like, Alhamdu. Ha. Ha. And the person, I just became Muslim and my throat hurts, man. Like, is that what the religion is all about? Is ha? Ayn? Are you serious? Did I just gain salvation to say a letter correctly in another language? I'm not being facetious at all. Brothers and sisters, this is a major wrong. This is a major wrong. He said Arabic language 7 because you have to prioritize what you're learning and start with just knowledge of God, then knowledge of the Quran, then knowledge of the Prophet, then knowledge of the way. Now you're good? All right, let me teach you some Arabic language, man. We don't start with that. And it really throws people off. So understand that through this knowledge, you have become a little bit more woke. That when you want to start learning and you feel that drive to get closer to Allah, don't go to the Arabic class. That's not where you're supposed to be. Oh, sorry. There's a little inside joke here. Okay. I may have to...
We're sitting in the Arabic class.
We're sitting in literally Qalam's Arabic classroom.
No.
She's like, I'm out, yo. I came to the wrong place. All right, let me break this down. All jokes aside, for those who are in the Arabic program. So, for those watching online, we're in Qalam. Obviously, there's over 60 students in this institute who have come from all over the country to Arlington, of all places, right? to learn. And so, but here's the deal. What he's talking about is this. Once you, every knowledge, you have to take these notes. Every knowledge has a fardul ayn and a fardul kifaya level. Fardul ayn is the minimum level that you should know in these sciences, and then there's an extra level. So, when you enter into an Arabic program just to learn Arabic, what you should make sure you do know already are the bases of all the fardul ayn, the obligatory things to know. Once you've got those, now you can start to put on the extra knowledges. Do you understand what I mean by that? So once you gain the basic knowledge of Tawheed, you've done some level of Aqidah, you know basic what your beliefs are. You've done some level of Quran, you know basic Quran. Now you can start to go deeper that, hey, I want to do the Quran, I want to get deep into the Arabic language, I want to get into grammar and all of these things after you've got the basis of each thing. Do you understand what I mean by that? So, but it shouldn't be that I know nothing about the religion, I know nothing about how to pray, and I'm doing grammar. No. For you, we're going to be like, hold on, back up. And that's why, to get into Arabic here at Qalam, you have to at least be able to kind of read the Quran, right?
Yeah.
See, you're already at that level. I'm not even joking. You're already at that level. Now, you can go deeper, but you're already at that level. Does everyone understand? Sorry to get so specific. I know not everyone is like, yo, I'm not part of the program, but it's important to understand where that Arabic fits in. Fahimtum? Cool? Okay, so now look what he says next. What time is it? How are we doing with time? We good?
40.
How many minutes? Like 40? Good. Alhamdulillah. If you don't know, that's good. If y'all know, I'd be like, all right, it's time to quit. Okay, next now he switches flavors a bit. He's done with knowledge and he's talking about actions. And this is really beautiful. This is things that we can literally act upon right away. It's so beautiful. He says, فَأَفْضَلُ الْعَمَلِ مَا تَعَدَّدَتْ لَهُ فَوَائِدُ كَعِلْمٍ قَدْ ثَبَتْ عن جهل ذي جهل وقبح يدفع وكل ما للذي راشد ينفع. He says, hierarchy of actions. Hierarchy of actions. If you want to know what action is the best action I should do, then the next action, then the next action, then the next action. What actions? You told me knowledge. I know. Great. You taught me what to learn. I know. But what do I do now? Look what he says. He says the highest actions that you should seek out are actions, the benefits of which serve many people. So you look for actions that have the biggest a societal benefit for people. You know, you try to establish institutions that are serving large numbers of people, not just you. So he says the best type of actions are those which the benefit is not restricted to you only. Find actions that, yes?
How do you marry that idea with the idea that you need to fix yourself before fixing others?
Let me hold that Lima for a minute. Can we hold it for a second? All right, because he's going to name some others, and I want to think on that for a moment. The question is, how do we marry that? Interesting term. How do we marry that with the fact that I'm supposed to focus on rectifying my soul, right? How do we bring those two things together? And so we're going to come back to that because he's actually going to kind of bring that up a bit. Okay? We're going to come back to it. Look what he says. He says the best type of action you should look for, the highest action, are the actions that are going to benefit more than one person. It's going to benefit multiple people. And he gives an example, and he's not being redundant, but he gives an example. He says, كَعِلْمٍ, like knowledge. When you learn and become a teacher, teachers are the most underrated people in our society. They have the most influence to cause good to people. They have the most influence to change hearts. I remember my kindergarten teacher. I don't know about y'all. I remember my teachers. I had one math teacher. Until today, I remember one thing he said. He said, repetition is the mother of learning. And he would repeat that like 50 times. And I remember his face. I remember him. I remember these teachers that sat with me after class teaching me things, who were getting paid nothing. Nothing. And so knowledge has amazing ability to reform people. So he says knowledge is one of those things. Because he says it can remove the ignorance of the ignorance, and the ugly qualities of a person can be pushed away. And through knowledge, you can guide every righteous person that wants guidance. Next thing. The next type of knowledge. Action, I'm sorry. The next action. He goes, وَمَا يُصَفِّ الْقَلْبَ وَهْوَ مَا أُدِيمٌ مِنْهُ وَإِنْ قُلِّلَ قَالَهُ الْحَكِيمُ وَكُلُّ مَا عَلَى النُّفُوسِ ثَقُلًا كمثل إنفاق لشخص بخلا والصوم للشر والخمول لمبتغي الشهرة والتفضيل. So he says here, and the next action, ما يصفي القلب, an action that actually cleans your heart. We'll talk about it. He says, وَإِنْ قَلَّلَ, even if it's a small action that you're doing, and it's consistent. The primary formula for the Prophet ﷺ's way of reforming your heart is that an action, and this is for everything, no matter how small it is, it must be very consistent. It must be very, very consistent. So what he says is, first thing you're going to look for is an action that benefits many people. And guess what the second thing right away is? An action that's good for your heart. Now, what are those actions? Watch this. وَكُلُّ مَا عَلَى النُّفُوسِ ثَقُولًا. Every action which is heavy on the nafs. The word came back again. The word nafs came back again. Nafs. That nafs is that thing inside of you again. He says every action that is heavy on the nafs. Now here's the thing. For each of us, we are so different. We are so unique. Like flowers in a garden, we are so different. Each one of us has a different jihad. We have a different struggle. Jihad al-akbar. Jihad of our soul. Right? Okay. Everyone has a different jihad, a different struggle in their heart. And what that means is, what's heavy on me may not be heavy on you. What's heavy on me may not be heavy on you. So he gives an example. He says, كَمِثْلِ إِنْفَاقٍ لِشَخْصٍ بَخِلًا. Like spending. What is it? It's the Alexa? It's not? Sorry. Oh, ignore it. It's all good. I think it's that phone right there. Yeah, just hit it. Okay. So listen to what he says. Listen to what he says. He says, for example, spending, giving charity for the person who has a lot of stinginess in them. So not everyone has this problem, but some of us, if you ask us to give charity, we hold on to money like we don't give nothing out. So that for you is heavy on your soul. That's heavy on your nafs. I mean, not soul, nafs. So he says whatever is heavy on your nafs, that's the action that you have to focus on, because that's what's going to be purifying your heart. And he gives another example. He says, وَالصَّوْمِ لِلشَّرَرِ, and fasting for the one who loves food. Oh, fasting. Is it off?
Yeah, it's off.
What? Which one? Instagram. 1 hour has passed. Yeah. Instagram can't go over an hour.
So you want just restart?
It's all good. Whatever. They missed it. It's all good. Whatever. Alright, wasomu. He gives another example, like fasting for the one who loves food. Fasting is heavy on the nafs. Very hard. Wakhumuli. Listen to what he says next. And khumul. Being unknown for the one who wants to be famous. The one who wants his name out there in front of everyone. To stay low key. That is heavy on his nafs. Or her nafs. And so what does he say here? Let's stop here. And now we're back at Lima's point. Lima was like, wait, I thought I'm supposed to be focusing on myself. Look what he said. He said, yeah, look for actions that benefit. See, Islam is a religion about bringing the greater good to the greater number of people. And so your inner struggle to become better should not stop you from bettering humanity. Do you understand? The Prophet ﷺ, yes, he would do i'tikaf. He would go be by himself. But the moment the sun rose, he was out with the people. He was serving the people. Because that's where benefit is going to come for more people. Anyone can go in a cave and sit there and meditate until the cows come home. And become a great person by themselves. But we in Texas, yo. We in Texas. I'm going to be roasted on that statement the whole ride home. For real. It's all good though. I know. It's like, okay. I know. Alhamdulillah. Till the cow comes home. Whatever. Can we get back to the point? My point, brothers and sisters, is this. We have actions that benefit humanity and actions that we're using to benefit our soul, make ourselves better people. You have to focus on the inner. Because if you get everyone to heaven and you are in hell, there's a big problem. You're trying to get to God's pleasure. You're trying to get to God's pleasure, which means you have to focus on your heart. But the moment the people need you, the moment there's a collective good and a positive good and a social good that you can bring to people, Hadir, Labaik, I'm there. I'm there. So, Sister Lima, we're combining both of those things. Lema. Sorry. Sister Lima. All right. Sister Lima, I'm sorry. Okay. Everyone got that? notice how he said this, and we'll end with this, inshallah, guys. I know it's getting late. We'll end with this, which is this. Every person has a different struggle that they're going through, and therefore we're each going to have a different action that's harder on us. But that action which is harder on us is the one that's cleaning our heart the most. That's the action that's cleaning our heart the most. You have to figure out what that is for you. I can't tell you that. You have to figure out what are those actions. Is it prayer? Is it charity? Is it giving for my Muslim brother? Is it remembering people's names correctly? I mean, whatever that action is, you're going to have to focus on that action, because that is the action that will be most beneficial in rectifying your inner state. Yes, Abdurrahman.
I had a question.
Yeah.
So I know. So you know how like 2 weeks ago you said that what was it, the external and the internal knowledge kind of like the same.
Yeah. What do you mean the same?
Like,
Equally important, yes.
Equally important.
Yes, yes.
That's what I meant. But then basically, like I would ask like, and how would you like compare it to like how the Sheikh he put aqidah and tawheed first and everything before the fiqh?
Oh, no, okay. Before the fifth. No, okay. The question is, we said last week or a few weeks ago that the esoteric and the exoteric knowledge, that they're equal. You need both of them. One of them is teaching you how to rectify your action. The other is teaching you how to rectify your inner state. But from today's lesson, it seems as if we're saying that there's one above the other. And I don't think that's the impression you should get from today. He's just saying when you start to seek knowledge, when you focus on that category, this is how you go about it.
Okay.
All right? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. One is not more than the other.
No, one is not more than the other. But when you start to seek knowledge, start this way. Bam. I know my basis of Tawheed. I know my basis of Quran. I know my basis of Hadith. I know my basis of fiqh. And now I'm going to start going higher and higher and higher.
With that, can I ask a second question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so let's say though that you start with like any other, like for example, fiqh, and you learn for anything else. Wouldn't you say that your knowledge without God, if you didn't truly like get to know Allah, that your salah wouldn't be as strong?
It wouldn't be as strong, perhaps. The question is, if I started with fiqh and I know how to pray and I know all the law, but I haven't focused on aqidah, knowing God, knowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, will my inner relationship with Allah be as strong? I don't think it will be, because you haven't focused on that knowledge. You haven't focused. Well, it depends. That question depends. Because a person can have a deep spiritual connection and be doing the actions correct and not know a lick of aqidah like from the book.
Yeah.
I think it's like filling a jar with rocks.
That's a beautiful example, yes. My wife just gave a great example, guys. She said it's like that, thing where you fill the jar with small rocks versus big ones. If you put all the small ones in, then you don't have room for. That's an amazing example, Sada. I mean, just amazing.
You gotta save yourself from that cow's comment.
Yeah. No, but seriously, we need to start with the most important things first, and then fill in those things around it. Definitely, I think that's the way we're speaking.
Okay.
All right. Today's lesson. I mean, it's beautiful what he's speaking about here. There's a few more lines, but it's been a long class. Everyone's been here for some time, alhamdulillah. And I think we got enough to digest for 1 week, inshallah ta'ala, to work on and contemplate over and to work on and build ourselves through, inshallah ta'ala. So I think we'll stop here, inshallah ta'ala. Are there any other questions, though? Any other questions? Yes?
Do you have any resources to start on our movement journey? Like if we want to start seeking knowledge for specifically aqidah?
Yeah, so the question is, are there recommendation and resources for aqidah to learn just beliefs? What I would recommend to anyone who just wants a primer base in beliefs is Aqidah Tahawiyah. That's the most primal book in this topic, and it's something you can even just read on your own. Aqidah Tahawiyah. If anyone wants to know what it is, I can tell you after class, spell it out for you. You can Google it. Tahawi. You can ask someone out. If anyone needs it, I'll give it to you. But that would be the easiest thing to read. It's just really self-explanatory, and it can give you the base. And so if you're studying on your own, I would recommend that. But you actually have to go sit under someone and study under someone who's learned it so that they can teach it to you. But that book could be read on its own. Yes?
Sheikh actually has like a SoundCloud series where he goes through that whole book in different.
Oh, so there you go. If you found the audio version of someone teaching that book, that would be amazing. Yes. Sister?
Yeah, how do you figure out what you need to work on first, like in terms of what hurts you the most?
How do you figure out what you need to work on the most? A lot of this is about knowing yourself and being true to yourself. Knowing yourself, spending time at the end of the day, doing a self-analysis of what you've been doing and what you're not doing correctly. Be truthful to yourself about that. If you're not praying, write down, I don't pray. If you're not treating your mother correctly, you write down, I don't call mom. You write down the things you're doing wrong, right? You write those down and face those things and realize that these are the problems that you have, and then you start to focus on those. But I really feel that the problem is we don't spend enough time with ourselves, by ourselves, analyzing our own spiritual state and being honest about it. Like, if you're missing prayers regularly, then write that down and like, yo, you don't pray regularly. Write that about myself. I don't pray regularly. That is my issue right there, and I want to work on that. What is it? Why? How can I work on that and become better at that? Yes, there.
I have a question. So the first knowledge we should seek is knowledge of Allah, right?
Yes.
Is that through the Quran or is that through His 99 names?
That's through, specifically what we were talking about is through the science of Aqidah, and Aqidah just means creed. What are the beliefs that we have?
So the very first one.
The very first one isn't just, she's asking, where do we learn Tawheed from? And that's what I was explaining to this sister, which is there are books that you can study that, see, look, if you were to open the Quran and try to pull out all the places that speak about creed, you'd be there all day, you'd be there your whole life. This has been done already before. There's scholars that have already pulled from the Quran all of the points which are Aqidah. You just have to pick up their books and read them. Do you understand what I mean? Like, let me give an example. Part of Aqidah is belief in angels, correct? So what do we believe about angels? Well, if you studied one book about that, you would know that we believe angels don't have gender. We believe angels don't have desires. We believe that angels are, a creation of God. Like, you know what we believe by studying a book on Aqidah. Do you get it? Okay. And last question.
Yeah. So you know how you can't get better in the same environment that made you sick?
You can't get better in the same environment that got you sick. Yes,
Yeah,
that's very
so if
difficult.
You're in like an environment that is constantly like beating you down or whatever.
Yes.
You want to get better. How would you kind of navigate through that? Because you want to get better and you know what you need to work on, but the outside like environment is at the
I had to change. The question is if the outside environment is not conducive to my change. It depends. Can you change it or not? If it's just about being inconvenient, but you can change it, you have to change it. You have to change it. An alcoholic cannot be in the environment of alcohol. Can't be. It's no matter what. Quit your job, do whatever you gotta do. Do you understand what I mean? However, if you can't change the environment, I'm not saying quit your job. You can't change your environment. Then what you have to do is you have to make sincere supplication and dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help you change your circumstances, to get out of that, and hate the sin. Hate the fact that I have to be in this environment. Hate the fact that I gotta work at this bar, or I have to work at whatever. I'm not saying we do that, I'm just saying as an example. Like, I hate this in my heart. Allah, I wish you would change this for me, but I can't change it right now. But I wish I could, Ya Allah, and you know I wish I could. That is powerful. That thought right there, Allah loves that. The desire to want to change, even if the external circumstances are not conducive to it. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta. Astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. We ask Allah to accept our gathering, inshallah. We'll pray our salat al-isha right now, inshallah. And inshallah, I'll see everyone next Wednesday, inshallah ta'ala.
A friend of mine, a good dear friend of mine, his wife is going to surgery tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Just
A friend of his wife is going through surgery, so we ask Allah to make it a successful surgery. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to restore her health quickly and make it a process that benefits her and she is protected and safe, Ya Allah. We ask you this, Ya Allah. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Alright, jazakallah khair everyone. Sister Lima, I'm so sorry. I kept saying your name. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I felt so bad. My wife. Who else? All right, we're gonna pray right now, inshallah.